Welcome to today's Explainer. We're untangling the remarkably complex web of animal control and pet licensing across Hennepin County. Now, if you're a pet owner, you might think you got all the rules figured out. But as we look closely at the data today, you might be surprised by just how hyper-localized those rules actually are.
Let's dive right into this because, and this is wild, an invisible city line literally dictates what you owe, what your pet can do, and even how many animals you can legally own. You could walk your dog across the street into a neighboring suburb and suddenly be subject to a completely different set of legal obligations. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the fragmented pet bureaucracy, compare local licensing systems, check out permits for unique pets, dive into service animals and the law, and wrap up with enforcement and future trends.
Section 1. The fragmented pet bureaucracy, looking at the county landscape.
Okay, so there are 45 distinct incorporated cities in Hennepin County, and under Minnesota state law, there is absolutely no single centralized county-wide agency for domestic pets. None. We're talking 45 distinct jurisdictions managing over 100 lakes and hundreds of thousands of residents, each with the power to craft their very own unique pet policies.
The crucial takeaway here is that your local town board or city council entirely controls the whole shebang. Dog licensing, pet limits, vaccination proof, the state legislature essentially handed all this authority straight to the local level. So whether you need a license, what it costs, or if you're allowed to have 3 dogs versus 4, well, that's completely up to your local city hall.
You can really see this divide when we look at Fort Snelling. If you live in an incorporated city, you answer to local animal control or police, but if you live in Fort Snelling, which happens to be the county's only unorganized territory, standard municipal pet licensing doesn't even apply. There's no city council, you actually answer directly to state laws, and enforcement falls to the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. It is a totally different administrative reality, literally just miles apart.
Section 2. Comparing local licensing systems and comparing the costs.
Now, the variance across neighboring cities is just wild. Look at Maple Grove. They charge a nominal $2 annually, which honestly barely covers the administrative cost of the paperwork. Then you've got Minneapolis charging $30 to $40 a year for pets, but they intentionally build in progressive social equity programs. Like if you're on SNAP, WIC, or Section 8 housing, they heavily subsidize that fee down to $15. Meanwhile, places like Bloomington and Edina do a lifetime license model to save you the hassle of renewing every single year, but then they have completely different multi-pet limits. But actually getting that license, not always a walk in the park. In Minneapolis, you have to jump through some pretty rigorous hoops. You have to prove your pet's rabies vaccination is up to date, and, this is a big one, you must have 0 outstanding municipal animal control fines. Want that lifetime license? Your pet has to be microchipped and sterilized. Oh, and here's a fun, quirky fact. If you decide to apply in person at the Minneapolis Animal Shelter, the city strictly mandates that you have to leave your pet at home. No pets allowed when getting the pet license.
There's also this massive policy tug-of-war going on across the county over whether these licenses should even exist. Plymouth and Minnetonka, they eliminated municipal licensing fees entirely to save on database administration costs, basically just relying on mandatory microchips and tags now. But on the flip side, Brooklyn Park repealed their licenses in 2019 and suddenly saw a spike in severe dog attacks. The lack of licensing data made it way harder to track dangerous animals, so their police chief actually pushed the city council to bring back a $30 registration fee for public safety. It's a fascinating, real-time debate about how local government should operate.
All right, Section 3. Permits for unique pets, specifically urban agriculture.
So say you live in Minneapolis and you want a chicken. Well, you can't just go buy a chicken on a whim. The city heavily regulates urban agriculture. You need explicit consent from your neighbors, you have to take an approved fowl education course, and then pay a permit fee based on flock size. 1 to 6 birds is $32. Up to 30 birds, that's $84. And if you want a rooster, get ready to open your wallet because that carries a hefty $110 permit fee no matter how many you have. And get this, they even require an $84 permit for non-venomous snakes that are over 4 feet long. Moving right along to Section 4, Service Animals and the Law, looking at federal and state rules.
It is absolutely crucial to separate fact from fiction here. Service animals are protected by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they are individually trained to perform specific tasks. That means they have full public access rights. If a dog's status isn't totally obvious, business staff are only legally allowed to ask 2 things. Is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? And what work or task has it been trained to perform? That's it.
they cannot demand medical papers. Now, on the flip side, emotional support animals fall under the Fair Housing Act. They provide comfort, but they do not have public access rights. To get housing accommodations, you need actual medical documentation from a licensed professional. And yes, Minnesota law explicitly states that buying a fake instant certificate online does not count.
Minnesota really doesn't mess around with this. Faking a service dog just to dodge pet fees, that's a crime. It's a misdemeanor that can land you a $1,000 fine and 90 days in jail. But more importantly, the state fiercely protects real service animals. Harming one is a felony. You're looking at up to 4 years in prison, a $10,000 fine, and the courts will mandate full financial restitution to the handler to cover vet bills and retraining. It's all about making sure these vital companions are protected.
And finally, Section 5, Enforcement and Future Trends, looking at fines and the future.
So what actually happens if you just ignore the rules? You might think you can fly under the radar without a license or maybe by having one too many cats, but agencies like Minneapolis Animal Care and Control run dedicated field services. Their animal control officers are actively patrolling, investigating animal-related issues, and managing massive impound facilities for strays and seized pets. In Minneapolis, a lapse in judgment gets expensive, fast. Forgetting to license your pet? That's a $100 fine. Taking your dog to an off-leash park without the special permit? That's another $100. And if your pet gets out and ends up at an impound facility, like Pups in Maple Grove or the Bloomington Animal Shelter, you are going to be paying substantial daily boarding fees, municipal taxes, and sometimes cash deposits just to get your best friend back. This whole situation perfectly highlights the current struggle for local governments right now. On one hand, city councils want to cut administrative waste and get rid of red tape by repealing licenses. But on the other hand, without that data, they really struggle to ensure community health standards or protect the public from dangerous animals. It's a very delicate balancing act, and it's shifting year by year.
So I'll leave you with this to consider. The next time you look at your pet sleeping on the rug, ask yourself, what invisible laws are governing them right now based purely on your zip code? Are they actually in compliance? And moving forward, which direction do you want your local city council to take to ensure the safety of your community? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. We'll see you next time.